Josephine had a saying, and it's the way that she accomplished so much has to do with that saying, because she said and would say to anyone who asked, do it now. If you're asked to do something, you do it now. An example of her do it now would be if someone rang her doorbell at 10 o'clock at night and she went to the door and opened it, it would be somebody needing a notary public. So rather than say it's too late, she would just do it now.
Josephine also had several mantras, but one besides do it now was, don't leave for tomorrow what you can do today. And Joe and I kind of got a double dose of that, not only from Josephine, but from my dad too, who would say, if you see something that needs to be done, don't wait to be told to do it, you go do it. And so both of us have been goal-oriented because of that, and Josephine started that way. That's what she believed in. Don't wait for tomorrow, do it now. An example of that was I was driving through Berkeley with her, and I was at the stage of my dissertation where I needed to have a committee. And I'd already talked to couple of professors to be in my committee, but I wanted to have a woman, and one of my classmates that we started together, but since I went part-time, she went full-time, she finished before me. So I said to my aunt, oh, that's where Joan lives, and I want to ask her to be on my committee. She said, well, stop the car. Let's go ask her. I said, no, I'm not going to bother her at home. You know, I don't want to be intrusive. She said, stop the car, go park. And we walked over to Joan's house. We knocked on the door. And I said, hi, Joan. And I said, this is my aunt. She said, oh, I've heard so much about you, blah, blah, blah. And she said, come on in. And so Josephine said, she wants to ask you a very important question. I thought, oh, God, what did my aunt do? But so I asked Joan, I said, I'm thinking I'm at the dissertation stage now with my committee, and I'd like to have a female, and I'd asked if you could be on my committee, since she had already graduated and had been finished. And so she said, oh, I'd love to. So that was an example of what my aunt would never let us put, do it later, I'll do it tomorrow. She wanted it done right now. My Aunt Josephine saw herself as someone to be able to help others. Wherever she saw there was a need, she would go there and see what she could do. And she was a people gatherer. So she would, before you knew it, she'd have a committee or other people to join a club or a meeting place to see what they can do to change all this, whatever the problem might have been that she had seen. So she immediately would take over and organize people. And she was very good at that. She was a people gatherer. People loved her. And she, I think it was because she always showed how she cared for people. She handled winning very well. She was received a lot of accolades, and she never felt better than others. She just felt that she was at everybody's level, and if there were, I know that she started teaching English over in El Viso to a group of Hispanics, and also she started a credit union in El Viso called Star of the Sea Credit Union. I don't know if it exists today, but she started that, and she would go over in the evenings to gather these people, Hispanics mainly, to teach them how to want to be able to save money and not just spend it, and to have a bank account. And she would talk to them about how it's important to have some money set aside for a rainy day. And so all these people really appreciated what she did. There were some times that things didn't work out for her. She had been the assistant postmaster for many years and had replaced the postmaster numerous times when he was, that was Ben Rogers, when he was hunting or traveling, she lived right in town, so anything that happened at the post office, the police department would call her right away. She'd go over and take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. And when he was going to retire, and she wanted that job of being postmaster because she had done it so often and for a long time, she asked him to recommend her, and he said no. He actually recommended a subordinate of hers, Walter Eberly, and that hurt her a lot. But instead of accepting that, she said, I'm going to fight it. So she started talking to all her friends, Jim Murray, the chief of police. They all wrote letters that she was the one who was doing all this work, and she started gathering momentum. Renee Baum, the attorney, said, I'll help you. There was another attorney, Voorhees, that helped her also, and Don Edwards helped her. And so she decided that she was going to fight for this position. And so she sued the post office, and it went on for, what seemed to me, a couple of years. I don't remember exactly, but there were a group of people who became the Friends of Josephine, and they would put up these dinners, and Amelia Val, who owned Val's in Alviso, was a dear friend of hers too and loved her, and she said, Josephine, I'm going to have you bring people here, you sell the tickets for your defense, you keep the money, I don't want any money, you just pay me for the food and that's it, and I want, I'll have you over several times for Friends of Josephine. So she did, and we would go to one banquet or another, and the Friends of Josephine were collecting money for her defense. And so she, as I mentioned, she was a good people gatherer for a cause. The library was the other cause. She started all by herself, saying that Milpitas, now at the town of Milpitas or city, needed its own library, and she fought hard for that new library, and that's why she has a room named after her now called the Josephine Children's Activity Room in the library. And we have numerous plaques and letters giving her accolades for having accomplished that. At the end of the court case, unfortunately, the judge didn't vote in her favor. Those were early days for women who were seeking positions that men usually held. And we all felt that that was not, didn't reflect on her and her abilities. It reflected on the times. And at that point, she asked us all, should I give up or keep on fighting? And then she said, I've given it a lot for several years now. I'm ready to do other things. And so when she went back to the post office, she went back to retire. And that's when the acting postmaster, Eberly, decided, he said, you're not going to retire now, because he didn't know how to run the post office and she did. So she said, yes, I'm going to retire. And so she said, from now on, you take care of all these problems. So she would send it to him. So unfortunately, she didn't win, but she did open the door for other women to become postmasters. Because after that, there was a flood of people, writing letters for themselves and others to recommend some women for postmastership. Josephine was a member of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. And in this group was the postmaster from San Jose, Mr. Lawrence, one from Los Gatos, Mr. Panaghetti, and there were numerous others. And they all wrote letters wanting her to be the next postmaster from Milpitas. So she, besides belonging to these professional groups, she had made connections, and they knew that she was a very able person to do that job, because they'd known her for years. And so she had professionals also backing her, and of course the Association of Postal Supervisors. Josephine was very active with BPW, which is the Business Professional Women's Club, that also helped her with the library and also named her Woman of the Year again with the Green Thumb. She also, through the Business Professional Women's Club, started Frontier Days in Milpitas. And the Frontier Days went on for so many years, and each time she would go riding on one of the floats, she would wear one of her original gowns, because she was a collector of old gowns. And Mrs. Alves from Alves Street donated to her a lot of these old gowns. She had a flapper gown, and she had this beautiful old gown with a parasol, and she wore that for Frontier Days many times. Josephine, in 1958, found out that all her work had not been in vain. She did get the library in Milpitas, and she also got at least 6,000 books to be put in the library of Milpitas. Don Edwards, a congressman, 9th District, was a dear friend of hers, and they ran several campaigns together. She helped him in whatever she could do for Don. He was a dear friend of hers. Also, Congressman Goopser of the 10th District, even though she didn't live there, she did help him too with campaigning, and she knew him quite well. Josephine was also voted in Woman of the Year in 1962 and 1963 by the BPW, which is the Business and Professional Women's Club, and the Green Thumb. She was a people gatherer, that she got people to do many things with her. She didn't shy from work at all. These are two other photos of Josephine receiving Woman of the Year, and it was a formal occasion, and she was Woman of the Year for 1961 and 62. Josephine was very instrumental and very interested in having Milpitas grow into a lovely city. As I had mentioned some time ago, she fought San Jose so that San Jose would not annex Milpitas twice. In 1962, there were several brochures. The Milpitas population went from 600 to later 5,300, and of course it's grown a lot since then. Josephine was a library trustee as early as 1960-61, and then later became chairperson of the Library Commission for the County of Santa Clara, as well as the city of Milpitas. And of course her pet project was getting a library in Milpitas. Pete McHugh, who was mayor in 1992, also officially thanked Josephine and confirmed her reappointment to the Library Advisory Commission. And she was on the Library Commission till 1994.
Yeah, she was always around. She was the second parent to us. My mother saw fit to see her as a second mom for us. And my father was pleased that they would take me fishing and stuff that he wouldn't be able to do because of his work, because he was working all the time.
Very close.
So we became very close, yes.
Josephine was very, as Joe mentioned, very close to both of us. I would say for myself, she was almost a surrogate mother. My own mother had rheumatoid arthritis a year before I was born, so there are many things that she couldn't do certain times because of the pain that she had suffered. So Josephine would pick us up and take us wherever we needed to go. And so we got very close. And my father, of course, worked constantly on the ranch, and he was not always able to take us places. I think he took us one time to Disneyland in Southern California, and a couple of times over to Visalia to see his cousin. But he liked traveling, but he, for some reason, he was so glued to his trees and his pears. So, but she was, for me, a surrogate mother, a confidant, we became business partners. We traveled together. We were in Morocco, and we went to Russia together. We went to China. She loved traveling to Portugal, Spain, and she also later in her life became a travel agent. And she went off on her own by herself. She went to Philippine Islands. I think she went on a couple of cruises where they had the 49er teams were there. And I think it was, do you remember who that football player was that continually wrote to her every year? I can't think of his name. Anyway, so she was always very friendly and people gathering and stuff. So, but she was very close to me. And she died in 2016.